Hi everyone, I'm gonna try to explain the social studies packet that Miss Cabrera sent home with you. It's also available on Google Classroom. For our first video, we are going to go over the first 4 pages together. When I spoke to Miss Cabrera, she said for the first page you do have a lot of this information in your folders, but I am going to walk you through just in case you need a little more help. So up top it says participating in your democracy. You may not feel like part of the government, but you are. The dem in the word democracy comes from the Greek word demos, meaning people. But how can one person have an impact on a government as huge as ours? Lots of ways. Emailing or phoning government officials, joining a community group, writing to the newspaper, and voting are just a few ways Americans can participate in their democracy. If you understand how government works, and you've got a bit of savvy about where your opinions will have the most impact, you can be an active member of the fourth branch of our government. It's citizens. Okay, so for the first part, I'm going to go over the first column that says executive branch. I'm going to start up at the top and work my way down through each of the questions. I will hold this up so you could copy it after we go over the answers. All right, so for the executive branch, who is involved? The president is the executive branch. What do? The president makes agendas, signs laws, vetoes laws, carries out laws, and enforces the laws. Do citizens get to vote for the person? Yes. How do citizens' votes count? All of the state's electoral votes go to the candidate who wins a majority in the state. Responsible for how many citizens? The president is responsible for the entire United States and all of its citizens within it. What are your odds of in-person contact with the president? Low. The president may appear at an event with thousands of people, but your chances of actually meeting them and talking to them one-on-one are very low. Could your calls, emails, or letters influence them? Of course, yes. So even though your chances of in-person contact are low, your voice can still be heard through emails, letters, or phone calls. So I'm going to hold up the executive branch. You can pause and copy at your own pace. So the president, they make the agenda, they sign and veto laws, they carry out laws, and they enforce laws. Citizens get to vote for them. Okay. Our votes count through the electoral college, might have heard about, and whoever is the majority for the states gets those votes, the majority votes for their specific state. The president is responsible for the entire population of the United States and its citizens. The odds of you being in person contact with them are low, but your voice can still be heard through emails, letters, or phone calls. Okay, so once again, you could pause at any point to copy down any of the information. All right, the next column we're going to go over is a part of the legislative branch under the column that says House. Okay, so it's the second column to the left next to the executive branch. So who is involved in the legislative branch? In the House are called representatives. What do representatives do? They introduce laws, they write laws, and they vote for laws. Do citizens get to vote for this person? Yes. How do citizens' votes count? The citizens get to vote directly for this candidate. Who are representatives responsible for? They are responsible for the citizens living in the representative's district. So it's only the people within their district who they represent and who vote for them. Odds of in-person contact are better. They often appear at local events that you can have better in-person contact with your representative. Could your calls, emails, or letters influence them? Yes. So once again, I'm going to hold this up and give you a chance to copy down this information. Try to make it easier for everyone to copy. So for the second column, once again, you could pause at any point of the video so you are able to copy down at your own pace. So once again, they introduce laws, they write laws, and they vote for laws. We vote for them directly. You have a high chance of meeting them in person, and your voice can be heard and influence them. Okay, we are going to move on to the next legislative branch, which is called the Senate. Okay, so who is involved in the Senate? They are called senators. What do they do? Just like representatives, they introduce laws, write laws, and vote for laws. Do citizens get to vote for the person? Yes. How do citizens' votes count? Citizens get to vote directly for the candidate. Who are they responsible for? How many citizens? They are responsible for their entire state. What are your chances, your odds of an in-person contact? Moderate. They often appear at state events with many people, but there's still a chance you can meet them in person. Could your calls, emails, and letters influence them? Yes. Okay, so once again, I'm going to hold up. You can pause at any point to copy at your own pace. So senators, just like representatives, they introduce laws, write laws, and vote on laws. We vote directly for them. They represent their entire state. You have a moderate chance of meeting them, but yes, your voice can still influence their decisions. Okay, we are going to move on to our final column, which is the judicial branch. Okay, so who is involved? This is the Supreme Court justices. What do? They hear court cases to decide whether laws are constitutional. Do citizens get to vote for this person? No. How do citizens' votes count? They don't, because they don't vote for them. Who are they responsible for? How many citizens? Just like the president, they are responsible for the entire United States, or none, because responsible to uphold the law. What are your odds of in-person contact? This is very low. You might not even know if you saw them in the streets. Okay, so they do not have, you do not have direct access to them as a citizen. Could your calls, emails, or letters influence them? No. Okay, so I'm going to hold up the last column and give you a chance to copy. Once again, you can pause at any point so you could copy at your own pace. For the judicial branch, they are the Supreme Court justices. They hear court cases. Okay. We do not get to vote for them. It's a very, very low chance you will ever have direct in-person contact with them, and your voice will not influence their decisions. Okay, that is the completion of the first worksheet. I hope you were able to copy down all of that information if you do not already have it in your folders. All right, the second page, at the top it says the fourth branch U. Okay, we are going to get a bunch of scenarios, and it says who you gonna call. Wally cares about a lot of issues, and he has decided to make full use of his citizen power. However, Wally doesn't quite understand how the federal government works. Check over Wally's letters, emails, and phone calls to make sure he gets the right people and doesn't embarrass himself. First, decide what Wally should do with each of his proposed communications. Tell him by circling the correct picture. If you find something wrong, tell Wally what the problem is. If not, tell him good job. Okay, so we are going to also use the chart we just filled out to help us complete this second worksheet. All right, so I'm going to read the first scenario. You're going to see it on a post-it note. It says, "Dear Mr. President, I believe it is very important to find cures for more diseases. Too many people are suffering because there is no way to make them better. Please write a law to create a new center for researching new cures. Sincerely, Wally." Okay, then you see a picture of a wastebasket or something that Wally should mail to the president. If we think back to our chart, we need to think, does the president make laws, right? Is he the person to contact about creating laws to make a new center for research for cures? And if you remember back to our chart, the president, right, does not make laws. That is not his job. So we would circle the garbage can, and we would tell Wally that the president does not make laws. This is not the person who he should be contacting this about. Okay, the second scenario. Once again, you could pause the video at any point if you need more time to copy. Scenario number 2. It looks like an email. Okay, so it's to Bob Smith at senate.gov, so we could assume this is a senator, which is a part of the legislative branch. From Wally at email.com. Subject, drug abuse. Dear Senator Smith, I am worried about some of my friends who are getting into drugs. Drug abuse is a big problem in our country, and it causes problems for a lot of people. Please find a way to enforce the drug laws more effectively so dealers will get caught. Thank you, Wally. Okay, so we need to think. Should he delete this email or should he send it to the senator? Now we need to think. Do senators enforce laws? Okay, so if we go back to our chart and we look under the Senate column, okay, we need to look. Do they enforce the laws? And if you look down the column, you see that they do not enforce the laws. Okay, that would be something that the president does. So for this case, this second case, we would also delete it. Right, this is something that Wally should not send to his senator, so you would circle the X. And in the box you would write, senators do not enforce laws. That is not their job. Their job is to create the laws. Okay, let's move on to the third example. It looks like it's a phone call to an aide. Okay, so a representative. Hello, Representative Roger. Wally. Hello, my name is Wally. I heard the Supreme Court is about to decide a case about giving kids more rights. Usually when kids talk, nobody takes them seriously. That's why I want Representative Rogers to tell the justices to decide that kids deserve more rights. So now we need to think, do representatives influence the Supreme Court? Okay, so go back to your chart, look over the Supreme Court column. Do we have influence over, does anyone have any influence over the Supreme Court? Okay, and the answer is no. So you would circle the X, right? He should hang up, right? Or not make this call. Okay, and there's two reasons why. Representatives cannot tell the Supreme Court what to do, and the Supreme Court cannot be influenced by its citizens. So they are not influenced by the representatives or citizens, even if Wally was to call them directly. So take a chance to write down both of those reasons why Wally should not contact this representative for this issue. Okay, let's move on to the next page, our fourth example. It looks like another email. It says, to Mary Jones at house.gov. From Wally at email.com. Subject, college loans. Representative Jones. I heard that Congress might pass a law that would make it harder to get a loan for college. This is a terrible idea. People already have a hard time paying for college. Please veto that law so it does not pass. Thank you, Wally. Okay, so that keyword is veto. If we look back in our chart, who has the power to veto a law? Is it representatives? If you look under the representative column. That's right. Representatives do not have the power to veto a law, so you would circle the X, right? He should not send this email to this representative, okay? Why? They do not have the power to veto laws. That's the president's job. The president only has the power to veto laws. Okay, let's move on to our next example, number 5. Dear Justice Martin. Okay, so this is a Supreme Court justice. I understand the Supreme Court is about to decide a case that could limit the rights of homeless people. I think homeless people will have a hard time solving their problems if their rights are limited. Please decide in favor of the plaintiff in this case. Sincerely, Wally. Okay? So we need to decide, is there a point to Wally writing a Supreme Court justice? Do citizens, because Wally is a citizen, does he have any influence over the Supreme Court judge? So if you look back at your data chart under, or your chart under the Supreme Court column, do citizens have an influence over the Supreme Court justices? You probably found no, they do not, right? So you're going to circle this garbage can. Okay? And then, just like I said, the Supreme Court justices are not influenced by citizens. Okay? So copy that information down. Okay, let's move on to the 6th example, which looks like a phone call. Aid. Hello, Office of the President. Wally. Hello, my name is Wally. I heard that Congress just passed a law to fund an expedition to Saturn. I think it's really important for us to know more about the other planets. Please tell the president to sign that law. Okay? So now we need to think, does the president have the ability to sign laws? Okay, so if you look at your chart under the president column, do you see if the president has the ability under what they can do? Can they sign laws? Yes, they can. So we would circle this caller icon. So yes, Wally should make this call because it might have an impact. And you say, no problem, Wally, good job. Okay, because he made the right decision to contact the correct person in terms of this issue. Let's move to number 7. Okay, the post-it note, the letter. Dear Senator Thomas, so he's a senator. I am afraid of what will happen to my town if a natural disaster strikes, such as a tornado, earthquake, or flood. Please introduce a law to make it easier for towns to get help for a natural disaster. Sincerely, Wally. Okay, so we need to think, do senators have the abilities to make laws? If Wally wants a law to be put in place, is he contacting the right person? So if we go back to our chart, okay, and we look under the Senate, the legislative branch, look to see what they do. Do they have the ability to make laws? Okay, so we're always looking back at this chart. And you might have found, yes, they do. That is their job, to make laws. So Wally once again got it correct, right? So we are going to circle the mail box. He should mail this letter to his senator. You say, no problem. Good job, Wally. Okay, because he contacted the correct person. Okay, and the last example for this page. It's another email, number 8. To tommiller@house.gov. From wally@email.com. Subject, Internet access. Representative Miller. A lot of people in my area do not have internet access at home. Please get all of the representatives to sign a law that will make it easier for people to afford the internet. Okay, thank you, Wally. So now we need to think, do representatives actually sign laws? Do they have that power? Going back to our chart under senators, look to see what they do. Do they sign laws? No, they don't. Only the president could do that. So we would delete this email, right? And we say representatives don't sign laws. Okay, they don't sign laws. They vote against them or for them. Okay, once again, I'll hold it up so you can see it. Okay, that is our completion of the second page. Okay, and the final page that we are going to do is a map where you see a bunch of different figurines on top of the United States map. Okay, on top it says focus your citizen power. Okay, from the left, citizens from each state vote to send people to Congress. Representatives only represent people in their district, so this is kind of a review. Senators, on the other hand, represent their whole state. Okay, and both senators and representatives go to Washington, D.C. to serve in Congress. Okay, so both senators and representatives are in Washington, D.C. The executive branch, the president, as we've talked about, lives in the White House. And then we also have the Supreme Court justices also serve in Washington, D.C., as indicated on that map. At the bottom of the page, A says responsible for how many. So also use your chart to help you. Make a bar graph to show how many citizens each person is responsible for. So on the y-axis, for the first chart, you are going to see it says all, lots, some, or none. Okay? And if we think the president, who is the president responsible for? We have learned that the president is responsible for every citizen that lives inside the United States. So you would draw your bar all the way up to the all. The senators, okay, senators represent their state. Okay, so they represent a lot of people within their state. So we have senators for the entire state of Illinois. Representatives, there are many more representatives in Illinois because they only represent specific parts of Illinois, not the entire state. So they only represent some people. And then the last one, it's asking you the Supreme Court justices. Just like the president, they represent all of the citizens. Okay, so make sure you fill that chart out. Part B says your citizen power. Make a bar graph showing where your citizen power has the most impact to get someone's attention on the issue. So once again, you could use that chart that we filled out right away and what we have learned to fill out. On the y-axis, it has the same indications: none, low, moderate, or high. We have presidents, senators, representatives, and Supreme Court justices. Okay, so our power is low to influence the president. We still can. We still can make phone calls, emails, and write letters. We have a moderate power when it comes to our senators, because they do still represent us in the state. However, there's a lot more people they represent. Representatives, we have the most power to influence them because they represent a smaller population. Okay, which means you have a higher chance of coming in contact with them, and your vote really matters to them so that you can impact them. And then the last one is the Supreme Court justices. Once again, we have learned that we have no influence or power over the Supreme Court justices. Okay, so that is a summary of the first 4 pages. I hope that was helpful. If you need any help or want to reach out for any more clarifications, please do so. Thank you.